All right, class, we're here and we're gonna get started. It says dividing decimal classwork partial quotients. Your paper is gonna say long division and it's also going to say that you're gonna estimate, but ignore all of that completely. What we want to do is we are going to focus on dividing decimals. Please make sure that you have your name, your date, and also your class number. I'm gonna be working out the first 3 problems with you guys. They've given you this here, which is 792 divided by 0.7. And I already started us off with our easy multiples. So let's go ahead and get started. Here, we know that we gotta move the decimal. And we have to move it all the way over to the end. So if I put a decimal here, I'll go ahead and cross that out. And we see that there is no decimal here. So when there's no decimal, we assume that it's always at the end. And what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. We're gonna go ahead and move it over 1 time. Let's make this longer. And because there's nothing here, it's gonna turn into a 0. So I've told you guys, make sure you circle it, and let's go ahead and rewrite it. So that is now 7 decimal. And then we have 7920 with a decimal at the end there. And now we can go ahead and move on. Here we have 700, but there's also a larger easy multiple that we can use, and that's going to be 7 times 1,000. And we know that 7 times 1 is 7, add the 3 zeros, and that is 7,000. So we're gonna go ahead and plug that in right over here. And that's going to be 7 times 1,000, which is 7,000. Okay, 0 minus 0 is 0, 2 minus 0 is 2, 9 minus 0 is 9, and there we have it. So we're gonna go ahead and continue. We know that we can use 700. That's the closest number here. So we're gonna go ahead and do 7 times 100, which is 700. 0 minus 0 is 0, 2, 9 minus 7 is 2. So now we're left with 220. And now we're gonna keep going. And we know that the closest one that we can maybe do to 220, we could end up using 70. If you guys wanted to do a little bit bigger, you can always end up multiplying another number. So for example, we know that 7 times 3 equals 21. But if we add a 0 here, we'll add a 0 here as well. So we know that it's 210. So if I end up doing 7 times 30, I know that that is 210. Okay, 7 times 1 is 7. And we are left with 3. Okay, the difference with this is we are going to have a remainder. So when we add up all of this, it's going to be 1,000 plus 100 plus 30 plus 1. We know that 7 can go on top of 7 here, so I can have my first box, another box on top of the 9, the 2, the 0, and this decimal came straight up. So the answer will be 1,131 when we add it up. 1,131 with a remainder of 3. And this will be my answer. Remainder is going to be with an R. Okay, and that is my first answer. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2. For number 2, you're also going to have a remainder, and which means that you're not going to end up with a 0. you are going to end up with something left over. So that's what's different about this worksheet that you guys are working on now. You are now having to deal with remainders. So now for number 2, I've already done the easy multiples, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. For this one, we have a decimal, 1, 2, move it over here, 1, 2, move it over. I'm gonna go ahead and circle this. This is gonna be the old one. We're gonna write down the new one, which is now 3 with a decimal. And now we have 0, 3, 5 with a decimal at the end. Decimal goes straight up. I'm gonna ask myself, can 3 go on top of a 0? No, it cannot. Can 3 go on top of a 3? Yes, it can. So my first box will be up here. My second box will be on top of the 5. All right, let's get started. So we know that the closest number to 35 on our easy multiples is 30. So I'm gonna go ahead and put 3 times 10 equals 30. 5 minus 0 is 5. 3 minus 3 is 0. So now we're only left with this. And 3 times 1 is the closest we can end up getting to 5. We can't use 6 because it would go over. So I would go 3. And then 5 minus 3 is 2. And we can't do 3 times something equals less than 2. So we know that this is our remainder. 10 plus 1 is 11. And now we have a remainder 2. Okay, and then we are done with number 2. Last one that I'm going to work on with you guys is going to be number 3. I've already finished out the easy multiples over here on this side. And so let's go ahead and get started. We know we have a decimal here. So we're going to move it 1 time over. We have no decimals, so when there's no decimal, we know that it's always at the end, and we're going to move it 1 time over. And there's going to be a 0 right here. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. So that would be 5 decimal 6, 3, 0 with a decimal at the end. And the decimal is going to go straight up. Can 5 go on top of a 6? Yes, it can. So that's where my first box will be. Second box on top of 3. Third box on top of 0. And now I can go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring this down. Okay, and now I have to find out what number is closest to 630. And I did do 5 times 100. We know that 5 times 100 equals 500. 0 minus 0 is 0. 3 minus 0 is 3. 6 minus 5 is 1. And then I look at my easy multiples. What number is closest to 130? That would be 100. So that would be 5 times 20 equals 100. 0 minus 0 is 0. 3 minus 0 is 3. And now we can go ahead and see what's closest to 30. That is 5 times 5, which is 25. Borrow from the 3. This is a 5. Now we can go ahead and do 5 times 1 is 5. And this one worked out with our 0. So there is no remainder. Now it's our time to go ahead and add these numbers up. 100 plus 20 plus 5 plus 1. And that would be 126. So I would put 1, 2, 6. And my answer is 126. All right, hope this side helps. You guys are going to go ahead and do the rest of the worksheet on your own.